Yo, what's up, guys? Yo, blast from the past. Yo, my 80s, 90s guys. You remember Gorezone, right? Gorezone. From the same publisher that did Fango and Starlog. Gorezone was like more hardcore. It was like uh, it was going for that 80s style of, especially the FX heavy stuff and the real edgy, like, like the gore, like, right, gore zone, right? That was the term gore was being used to denote blood, guts, and all kinds of amazing effects. The height of the real, what they call practical effects now. The only effects you had back then before computers. I got this at a comic store in New York, one of the Jim Hanleys, but not the one in Manhattan by the Empire State Building. That's gone. The one in Staten Island, yeah, New Dorp. They have a lot of these old, not just Gorezone. There's another one I'll show you that I had. I don't think I have even got a hand on back then. But I'll do that in another vid. This vid here to focus on just a sampling issue of Gorezone. This is from the early 90s. So go through some of it. I mean, some of the stuff, I can't go over everything rough, but this was a full moon, right? Full moon. Direct to video. This is the direct to video stuff, right? Coming in June on video cassette, right? This was a really good movie, man. I mean, Lance Henriksen, what can we say, man? This guy, solid dude. Always liked this dude. Always looked like a creepy old guy, even when he was young. But this was a good movie. Remember the woman in this? What this woman goes through is so horrific. And yet she still has a lot of strength. You want to talk about brass tacks, right? Of female strength throughout history. The woman in this embodies that true female strength that you see in this horrific, very corrupt, very dark, also very humorous film. I haven't seen it in years, but I just remember she goes through, and you see the old, like, I don't know, you can see the sense of it, right? It's early, I think it's 1990, 91, right? 91. So, but you still, like, how they say, it's still the previous decade until you're about 3 or 4 years in. So we're still in the late 80s. And there's a segue to now, Tim Pone. Remember Anthony Timpone, the editor? He's talking about comics, like horror comics. How comics made a huge impression. Horror comics made a huge impression on him. Right? And he does I remember, right? The horror comic scene. I was talking about it with the Stephen Bissett interview where they started making these anthologies. They started doing really edgy stuff. Clive Barker was all over that as a creator. And you see here, if you're not a comics fan, right? Graphic horror is a new GZ column, right? Yeah, it was actually, man. In the late 80s, early 90s, man, the horror comic stuff really was coming into its own. Look at this, wrote this. Talk live to other believers. Do you guys? I don't know who remembers this. Maybe BTD. You remember? They used to have I remember as a kid on the weekends, the party line, right? They had all these like things you would call, and it was like expensive. It was to rip you. And it got to the point where they were saying, "Kids, get your permissions, your parents' permission, before you call," because you can imagine some guy getting the bill, the phone bill, and then see like these kids calling up these, who knows who they're talking to, racking up these phone bills. I always thought it was funny. And see the letters, the letter columns talking about a cannibal holocaust. Henry Portrait of a serial killer, right? Hellraiser, This was, bro, late 80s, early 90s. This was when it was at the apex, in my opinion. Yeah, Gore Shriek, right? Fantico, Deep Red. I think, wasn't Deep Red I think there was it was not, I don't think this was in reference to the film. This was something else, but yeah, the Gore Shriek. I never had one of these things. I didn't have the money. They're going to the, like, the latest Howling. The Howling didn't really do too well. Oh, Leanna Quigley, remember her? I'm trying to go here. Although it's interesting, I don't know if any of you remember Tim Lucas, Video Watchdog. He eventually got his own magazine for this film. I always heard this French film, Baby Blood. I never saw this film. Never really heard anything of it. I just never got around to it. Like this woman is pregnant with this baby who's like this blood sucking creature. And also real big was also like the masks, right? They used to have like these little studios that would just make masks. And if you got the licensing of it, that was always cool, right? All right, so graphic horror. So plunging into four color fright. Remember that term, four colors? And this is this is when you had the Nightmare on Elm Street comic, the Clive Barker comic, the Night of the Living Dead comic. I remember these. Innovation. You remember Innovation? They did a lot of the horror stuff. They did the Anne Rice stuff. They did, I think, the Chucky stuff. They did, obviously, Freddy, the Nightmare on Elm Street. Interesting. I remember this stuff, but it's like, you know how it is when you get older. It's like a dream. But I remember the Chucky comic was kind of cool, right? Because, see, Chucky was funny. Chucky's a queer icon now. I don't have no idea why. He's a friggin', he's like a foul mouthed, I'll kill you, I'll fucking kill you, right? Fucking, I don't know. He just doesn't seem like that to me. Yeah, I remember this guy Charles Burns. I remember this. Not a huge fan, but like Richard Sala or Chester Brown. Kind of more like where the alternative comics and the horror comics met. And posters. Put this on your wall. Yep, more of the same. These were back in the day, man. You had like all these little studios making like these horror masks. So I guess that's kind of died down now. Interesting. Also, of course, with Gorezone, one of the big things was the FX, right? This is what you see how you sculpt, right? You make your life cast, you sculpt on it with clay, and then you do another cast of that with the foam latex. It's a whole process, and it's cool here. This show, does anybody remember She-Wolf of London? It was out, back in the day. Even I was like, this is not a great show. It was kind of campy, but there was some really nasty scenes in it, and it was on television. It was on Channel 9 where I was. Like, she actually rips a guy's arm off. And in retrospect, all those early 90s shows, like Dracula the series, like those kind of weird kind of shows, they were kind of nasty. I told you, like Friday the 13th the series, they were, when I was a kid, I wasn't sure if they were really great, but they were interesting. They're literally classics compared to what you have now. I like this here. It became necessary to exaggerate the muscles and breast area so the outfit will read on film as female. And that's just a massive fur. Look at this. The whole body cast you had to go through. It's just interesting. This was a huge thing. A lot of guys got into this stuff, but now it's kind of novel. But it shouldn't be. This is still the best. Always respect for that. The unborn. Yeah. What, your hoes mad? You mad? Careful. Here we go. Ilsa. So they're covering this actress. A nice busty woman. Right. But the thing about this article is interesting. Talking about this woman, right? The films. I have never seen these films. I've seen the covers of them, but whoever wrote the captions of this are the best. Hogan's Heroes wouldn't have survived the day with this guy. Yes, right. Hogan, right? And you get even more. Here's Perestroika's worst nightmare in Tigers of Siberia. She's always playing like some evil, political woman or something. And what is this? Oh yeah, the real Desert Storm strikes, opposing Ilsa, harem keeper of the oil sheiks. The captions are even better than the article, just covering the Ilsa series. And of course, continuing on page 61. I always hated when they did that. They don't. That's something I noticed they don't do that much anymore. Where you continued on page something. It's like, why don't you just finish it and go to the next? Maybe there's some things have improved in publishing. This was good. Okay, right off the bat, look, Stephen R. Bissett. I went over him. He was always writing, already writing articles back then. Here he's going over surrealist film. Okay, now you go from what I keep saying, the decadent movement, the expressionists, the surrealists. Right, the surrealists sort of go into an opposite direction rather than a mainstream horror. But much of the imagery in surrealism is horrific, is just bizarre, right? And this is actually a really good resource for me. I've heard of Kenneth Anger, right? I've heard of what is it, Jack Smith. I've heard of these people, Curtis Harrington. I've heard of these, obviously Buñuel, right? Jodorowsky, we all familiar with. But this is, I mean, Bissett really lays out a really good resource here, and a lot of this stuff I haven't heard of, right? This is interesting, and a lot of this stuff, right, the surrealist film, okay, is on YouTube, so you can watch it for free. So this was I didn't expect this, right? Really interesting. I keep saying some of the best horror stuff is like the surreal kind of stuff. At least like the '80s horror really covered that. Okay, at this point now you can say maybe it's a cul-de-sac. It's sort of not that interesting after all it's been done, but at the time it was, as a snapshot in time. And you go over, and here we got the continuation of it. Was this Carl Suchernick's Mutant Massacre? So the guy made his own movie. Nanuet, $30 back then. Holy jeez, bro. But I gotta look that up. I remember vaguely hearing about this, but that's what you could do in Gorezone. Look, the people advertising, like I said, small studios, guys in their garages making latex masks, guys making their own horror films and selling them like out of their P.O. box. It was cool. Look at this dude. What, dude? Everybody looked like this back then. Eddie Webb. Hey. Fuck. Before you had the internet, you had the 1-800. Let's get another studio. What is this? These guys. I mean, they really did a good job back then. Doing this here. Classifieds, right? It's like another time, man. The internet sort of changed all that. Hey, Gore Shriek. Yeah, they had right the what is it? Yeah, I have this somewhere. I have George Romero signed this for me. I'll never forget that. I told you that story. Guy waited, his publicist was trying to drag him off, and he would not wait until he signed my book, man. I'll never forget that ever. Yeah, Midnight Marquee. They were great. I remember Midnight Marquee published a lot of good stuff. So, yeah. Rounding it out, we got more of the mask. They really loved these little mask studios where some guy could actually make something of it. Oh man, Terminator 2. So a little blast in the past, going back, so many years to the late '80s, early '90s. Looking at Gorezone, okay. It was great looking through this, the old. Like I keep saying, like another planet now, but a lot of fun and amazing. Some of the foreshadowing to the future, but that's what makes existence so interesting, right? History it's a song. It has a rhythm. It has a beginning, middle, and end act, but it never ends. Never ends. Look at that. That's cool. And we'll go forward. I want to show you this other magazine from the same time period that I had never really. I don't think I even got a hands on it, but Morbid from Morbid Vision had brought it up, and I'll show that in the next vid.